Adrian Cross arrived in Cedar Brook with a spreadsheet of losses and a reputation for ruthless efficiency. His black sedan rolling past boarded-up storefronts and a diner where old men stirred coffee they couldn't afford, the factory's fate already sealed in his mind until a woman in steel-toed boots stepped into the road, lawn chair scraping asphalt as Rosa Guerrero planted herself like a sequoia, her voice steady as a welder's torch. "You don't get to kill what you don't understand." The factory gates looming behind her like rusted sentinels, their hinges groaning in the wind that carried the scent of pine resin and diesel, Adrian's driver tapping the steering wheel, his knuckles pale, the town's silence thickening like the August humidity, Rosa's posture unyielding as the Appalachian foothills framing the horizon. Her eyes not on the billionaire in the backseat but on the factory's fourth-floor windows where faces pressed against glass, workers in grease-stained shirts holding their breath, their pensions, their children's futures suspended in the standoff, Adrian's assistant murmuring about missed flights and shareholder calls, his words dissolving as Rosa yanked open the car door, sunlight glinting off her union pin, a chipped enamel fist clutching a rose. "You wanna close us, then stay a week," her dare slicing through his air-conditioned indifference, the lawn chair's plastic weave digging into the sedan's pristine tires. A metaphor she hadn't intended but the universe endorsed, Adrian's jaw tightening as he calculated the optics, the delay, the risk of this woman's defiance going viral. Her niece Marisol already filming from the sidewalk, the factory's oldest machinist, Tomas Rivera, wheezing laughter into his oxygen tube from the parking lot bench. "She's got the stones we lost in '08, he'd rasp later at the VFW hall, Adrian stepping out of the car. His Italian leather soles meeting asphalt cracked like the town's collective spirit, Rosa's smirk ablaze. "Welcome to the revolution, Mr. Cross," the word revolution echoing off empty warehouses that once supplied steel to skyscrapers now bearing his name. The town held its breath as Adrian's driver turned off the engine, curtains twitching in Mrs. Pena's boarding house where he'd grudgingly booked a room, rumors spreading faster than the bakery's cinnamon rolls. Teenager Javier Martinez live-streamed the standoff from his bike. "Bro, this is like David versus Goliath but with LinkedIn profiles," while Rosa's niece Marisol texted the union group chat, "Tia's doing the thing again." The factory's parking lot morphing into a stage where every resident became both audience and actor. Mrs. Pena fluffing pillows in the boarding house's best room, her late husband's flannel shirt still hanging in the closet she'd empty for Adrian's suits, the diner's cook, Big Sal, already plotting a menu of billionaire pancakes drenched in irony and local syrup, the town's librarian, Miriam, reshelving books on labor history with pointed care, the air vibrating with the unspoken understanding that this was Cedar Brook's last stand, the factory's heartbeat monitor flatlining for years until Rosa jammed her finger on the shock paddles, the high school's shop teacher canceling lessons to weld protest signs, the town's single cop cruiser idling discreetly behind the post office. Officer Ruiz texting his wife, "Don't let the kids walk past the factory today," the tension seeping into the soil where generations of workers had buried their lunch pails and dreams, the church bells refusing to chime, the wind itself pausing mid-whistle, even the stray dogs circling Adrian's sedan with raised hackles, their growls harmonizing with the distant whine of a bandsaw from the factory's graveyard shift, Rosa's hand steady on the car door frame, her father's voice in her ear, "Mija, you don't negotiate with hurricanes. You redirect them," her mother's ghost nodding from the passenger seat where she'd once organized the '87 strike, Adrian's phone buzzing with Tokyo market updates in his pocket, his CFO's face pixelating on the screen like a modern-day Cassandra. Abort mission, the billionaire's gaze flicking to the factory's mural visible through grimy windows, a splash of color in the gray, his throat constricting at the sight of painted hands clasped across decades, Rosa following his glance. "That's your competition, Mr. Cross," her voice softening for the first time. "Ghosts outvote shareholders. Every time." Day one began with the screech of machinery Adrian deemed obsolete, workers eyeing his Italian loafers as Rosa forced him onto the assembly line, his palms blistering under gloves loaned by Luisa Chin, 60-year-old quality control specialist who'd outlasted 3 CEOs. "You squeeze bolts like you're choking competition, Mr. Billionaire. Here we tighten with care." The factory floor swallowing Adrian whole, the stench of machine oil and burnt coffee etching itself into his eardrums. Assaulted by the symphony of clanging metal and shouted Spanish, Rosa's laughter ringing over the conveyor belt's groan as he fumbled with a wrench. Not your boardroom, huh? The worker stares heavy with generations of distrust. Javier's phone capturing every flinch for his 2K followers. CO versus Bolt #12. Who ya got? Me Luis's whisper cutting through the din. My son designed that drill press. Got a full ride to MIT. Died in Kabul last spring. Adrian's hands freezing mid-turn, the bolt rolling into the catch basin as the veteran machinist Joe McNally materialized beside him. She ain't telling you for sympathy, boyo, she's telling you cause that press matters. The shift bell clanging like a death knell, Adrian's tailored shirt soaked through, Rosa appearing with a grease-stained clipboard. Breakrooms that way, if you survive the vending machine. Her smirk fading as she watched him stare at the mural's newest addition, a child's stick figure drawing taped beside Depression-era photos. My kid, said forklift driver Marco, thinks you're a supervillain. Adrian's reply lodged in his throat as the mural's painted eyes followed him to the exit, the sunset bleeding through broken windows, the factory's shadows stretching like skeletal fingers over his borrowed steel-toed boots. By day 2, the factory's rhythm seeped into Adrian's jet-lagged bones. 4 a.m. laughter from the overnight shift peeling through his boarded house walls. He found Rosa in the break room at dawn, scrubbing graffiti. Left by layoffs past, that one's Carlos. He taught me to argue contracts. That smudge management called it cost-cutting, we called it erasure. The room reeking of bleach and burnt popcorn, the fluorescent lights flickering like a failing heartbeat, Adrian's shadow stretching across the mural where generations of workers had signed their names in sharpened paint, Rosa's rag circling a faded 99 strike crew tag, her voice low. Carlos got pancreatic 2 years back, died in the parking lot. Waiting for an ambulance that took 27 minutes, his daughter works in shipping now. Her tuition paid with our strike fund, Adrian's fingers brushing over a splintered coffee table carved with initials, JM plus LC 1972, the grooves worn smooth by decades of lunch breaks. Rosa nodding to a cracked vinyl booth. That's where we held Joe's intervention when the painkillers got bad, and over there. She pointed to a bullet hole in the vending machine. That's from the '08 foreclosure protest. Security guard panicked, hit the Snickers, her laugh bitter as the coffee she poured him. They docked our pay to fix the glass, Adrian's throat tightening as he noticed fresh graffiti under the tablecloth equals vulture in red spray paint, Rosa following his gaze. Kids these days. No subtlety. She tossed him a rag. Scrub it or own it, your choice, his cufflinks snagging on the table's edge as he knelt. The chemical burn of cleaner mixing with the metallic tang of regret, the mural's eyes watching, always watching, the sunrise bleeding through barred windows as the first shift crew arrived, their boots pausing at the sight of the billionaire on his knees, Rosa sipping her coffee. Get to work, he's just another temp. Day 3 unraveled during a safety drill when veteran carpenter Joe McNally coughed blood into his bandana, Adrian reaching for his phone to summon a private jet medic, Rosa stopping him with a glance. Your hospitals don't take our insurance. She drove Joe to the free clinic in her 98 pickup, Adrian crammed in back with toolboxes poking his ribs, the truck's exhaust rattling like a death rattle as they passed the shuttered elementary school, its playground overgrown with weeds. My kids swung there. Joe wheezed, before the layoffs killed the tax base, Rosa's knuckles whitening on the steering wheel. My sister's boy got bit by a brown recluse there last summer. ER turned us away cause their system still had him listed under his deadbeat dad's expired policy. Adrian's phone buzzing with a Zurich area code, ignored, the clinic's waiting room a mosaic of cracked linoleum and peeling flu season posters. A toddler wailing as a nurse whispered, "We're out of amoxicillin." Joe's file slapped onto the front desk, the receptionist sighing, again, "Mr. McNally," Rosa's voice ablade, again, "Miss Harper, you gonna treat him or autopsy him?" Adrian hovering awkwardly by a donation jar labeled Christmas for janitors, his Rolex reflecting in the plexiglass as Joe was ushered behind a curtain, the sound of retching mingling with a blaring soap opera on the waiting room TV, Rosa's voice cutting through the noise. You know why he still works cause the clinic waives his copay if he logs 30 hours weekly. Your factory's his life support, Adrian's whisper hoarse. I didn't know, her laugh sharp enough to draw blood. You didn't ask, the doctor handing Joe a sample pack of off-brand steroids, take one every bankruptcy, he joked weakly, The ride back silent save for the pickup's whining transmission, Joe's hand trembling as he passed Adrian a carved wooden bird from his overalls. For your guilt, he rasped, whittled the wings down. It'll fly better. Thursday's rainstorm flooded Lot B as the daycare roof sprang leaks, Adrian dangling from support beams with Javier and a tarp, toddlers giggling below as Rosa's sister Elena handed up duct tape. Careful, Mr. Fix-It, my kids already like you. He noticed a drawing on the wall, stick figure workers holding hands around a man in a tiny suit, Marisol's label. Rich dude learns to share, the storm raging like the shareholders' calls Adrian had silenced. His suit jacket abandoned on a pile of soggy alphabet blocks, Javier's live stream caption reading CEO versus Mother Nature. Spoiler, we're rooting for the hurricane. Rosa shouting over the downpour. Left. Your other left, Harvard. Her hand steadying the ladder as wind whipped her poncho into a crimson flag, the children's laughter rising above the thunder, their tiny hands slapping puddles in rhythm with Adrian's hammer blows. Elena muttering, roof's been leaking since my baptism. They promise fixes every contract. A toddler tugging Adrian's soaked pant leg. Mister, you're posed to put the tape sticky side down. The mural's new additions running in watercolor streaks, Rose's shout cutting through the chaos. McNally, get your COPD ass off that ladder. Joe's grin visible from 3 stories up. You're not my mom. The daycare's pet guinea pig escaping into the storm. A dozen workers forming a human chain to corral it. Adrian's designer belt repurposed as a leash. The chaos crescendoing until the lights flickered out. A single flashlight revealing Rosa and Adrian shoulder to shoulder, bailing water with a one boss mug. Her whisper cutting through the dark. This is the shit that never makes the spreadsheets. The dawn breaking to reveal a patched roof and sleeping children curled under emergency foil blankets. Adrian's phone floating in a mop bucket. His assistant's final text glowing beneath the surface. Board. Votes at noon. Day 5 cracked open during payday negotiations, Rosa slamming ledgers on the table. You see numbers. I see Miguel's diabetes meds, Kira's college apps. Her fingers stabbing at line items like a prosecutor delivering a closing argument. This operational inefficiency paid for Mateo's funeral when the furnace exploded in 15. This overhead kept the lights on at the shelter after the flood. Adrian's gold pen hovering over cost-cutting proposals as the union's breath hitched in unison. The conference room's cracked leather chairs groaning under decades of betrayed promises. Tomas sliding a yellowed photo across the table, his nicotine-stained finger tapping a smudged face in the 1943 assembly line. My abuelo died here making bomber parts, shrapnel in his lung from a press that still jams every third Tuesday. They called him essential. Buried him in a pauper's grave, Rosa's voice dropping to ember warmth. Now we make hospital beds that get shipped to your luxury clinics. Beds that charge $900 a night to people like Joe, who still can't get a fucking MRI. Adrian's gaze trapped between the ledger's red ink and the photo's frayed edges, his CFO's voice in his head chanting trim the fat. But here the fat was Luisa's arthritic hands oiling machines that outlived her husband, Javier's sister doing homework in the stockroom between shifts. The faint hum of the mural's painted ancestors leaning through the walls, Rosa's pen circling a figure. This isn't a wage, it's a life raft. You sink us, you drown this whole valley. The air conditioner choking on sawdust as Adrian's signature faltered, his usually flawless cursive blurring into something that looked like maybe. Sunday's silence gnawed at Adrian as he wandered empty floors, tracing the mural's history. Depression-era overalls, Rosie the Riveter redrawn with Rosa's tattoos, modern faces cradling solar panels. His reflection warped in the paint's fissures, artist Priya Sharma materializing from the shadows. With a coffee can of brushes, the walls a mirror, Mr. Cross shows who you are before you know it. Her laughter bitter as she pointed to a corner where corporate logos had been painted over with dandelions. Your predecessor demanded we add his face. We made him the fertilizer. Adrian's cufflink catching on a protruding nail, blood blooming on cotton as Priya smirked. The wall takes payment, stories or skin. She gestured to a fresh patch of primer. Your spot's waiting. Hero or villain depends on the next act. His fingers finding a dried blue fleck from Rosa's sleeve, the exact shade of her chipped nail polish during negotiations. Priya's voice softening. They painted through the '89 lockout, hid protest plans in brushstrokes. Every color's a battle cry. The silence ruptured by a janitor's radio playing Solidarity Forever. Adrian's whisper lost in the echo. What if I can't fix this? Priya dipping her brush in coffee dregs. Fixing's not the point, surviving is. The mural's newest addition gleaming wait a half-finished owl with Rosa's eyes, wings spread over a nest of dollar bills. She thinks you can't see it yet, Priya lied, capping her paints as dawn bled through skylights, Adrian's shadow merging with the owl's talons. Monday's board call came at dawn, investors demanding closure stats. Adrian muted them to watch Rosa help Joe install a memorial plaque for workers lost to asbestos, her hair grayed by concrete dust as she mixed mortar with a trowel. Marco's dad, Lita's mom, my cousin Ricky all coughing up their guts while the bosses bought respirators for the office plants, Joe's gnarled hands steadying the bronze slab. This ain't for pity, it's so the next suit knows we count. Adrian's laptop flashing with termination orders as Rosa etched names into wet cement, her tears leaving craters in the corporate seal, the board's voices rising through his AirPods. Liquidate, leverage, optimize, their lexicon sterile against Joe's rasped amen. Adrian's finger hovering over send on a shutdown memo as Priya's owl stared from his screensaver, the plaque's fresh letters mirrored in his glasses. They gave more than numbers, the board chair snapping, cross, you soft, his reply a decade's reputation crumbling, stand by for restructuring, dialing a Stanford robotics professor whose thesis he'd once mocked. What if automation adapts to people, not the reverse? Through the window, Rosa pressed her palm into the plaque, cement swallowing her union ring's grooves. A fossil for the future. By Tuesday, whispers swirled at the PTA meeting where Adrian awkwardly donated new laptops. High school counselor Diane whispering to Rosa, saw him fixing the merry-go-round, blisters under his Gucci watch. Rosa just smiling, rich men hate owing debts, he's up to 12, the school gymnasium reeking of decades-old sweat and industrial floor wax, the laptops stacked like headstones on the scoring table, Adrian's shadow stretching across the basketball court's faded championship stripes. Cedarbrook Tigers, 92 state finalists now cracked like the dreams of every kid who'd dribbled here. Javier's little sister Kira testing a laptop's camera. Do these come with healthcare? Her joke met with hollow laughter from parents clutching free lunch forms, the principal's mic feeding back as he praised Adrian's generosity. Rosa's eyes narrowing at the donor plaque already engraved with Cross Technologies in corporate blue, her boots scuffing the gym's stage where she'd once given a valedictorian speech about fair wages, her scholarship long spent on union dues, Adrian flinching as a mother thrust her toddler into his arms. Say thanks to the nice man who saved Daddy's job, the child's sticky fingers leaving jam prints on his charvet tie, the crowd's applause echoing like a distant landslide. Diane cornering him later by the trophy case. My son's in your San Jose warehouse, can't afford insulin on your competitive wage. Her voice serrated, he's 24 with kidney failure. But hey, his productivity stats are stellar. Adrian's reflection fracturing in the dusty glass over a 92 team photo. Rosa's teenage face grinning beside Diane's son, both hoisting a trophy, back when hope wasn't a four-letter word. Wednesday's investor arrival sparked panic. Armani suits inspecting machinery as Rosa served them burnt coffee. Our profit margin, she deadpanned, the corporate jet's engine still rumbling in the parking lot, shareholders recoiling from the stench of cutting fluid and desperation. Adrian's demo of Joe's ergonomic redesign faltering as a conveyor belt spat bolts like shrapnel, Rosa catching one midair. Souvenir from the trenches, she dropped it into a VP's latte, the investors. Polished shoes sticking to epoxy older than their mistresses, CFO Victoria Chan snapping, this isn't disruption, it's a daycare for has-beens, her Louboutin cracking a chalk outline from the 15 accident, Tomas wheeling over with blueprints yellowed by coffee rings, your granddad's company made the original molds, Mr. Cross, charged us triple during the war, the room freezing as Adrian's palm met a rusted support beam. Flakes of lead paint snowing onto his collar, this stays open, his voice splintering, we retool or I buy your shares at 45 prices, Rosa's cough muffling a laugh, Dickensian twist. Scrooge hired the ghosts, the investors' exit marked by Javier's drone buzzing their Mercedes, live stream chat exploding with eat the rich emojis, Adrian finding Rosa later in the parts closet, her hands shaking as she counted respirator filters. Why'd you do it? His silence answered by the mural's new owl spreading golden wings over freshly painted stock tickers, Priya's brush strokes Still damp with metaphor. Day 7 dawned with a foreclosure notice on the bulletin board, workers hugging goodbye until Adrian ripped it down. "We're not closing," he rasped, voice raw from 3 sleepless nights. "We're becoming a coup." The crowd's roar shaking asbestos dust from the rafters, Rose's protest drowned in the cacophony. "You can't just..." Her words swallowed by Luisa's weeping, Javier's live stream toppling as the stampede surged forward. Adrian's cufflinks torn off as relics, the foreclosure notice shredded into confetti, Tomas whispering, "They did the same in 32, then the Pinkertons came," Rose's fist clenching the last unbroken coffee mug, its world's okayest boss slogan cracking as Adrian outlined profit-sharing tiers, his blueprints now featuring the mural as load-bearing wall, Priya already sketching his portrait mid-transformation half spreadsheet demon. Half uncertain savior the investors' severed contracts burning in an oil drum outside, flames licking the night as the shift bell rang, Adrian's hand brushing Rose's over the new charter. "You'll hate the terms," he warned, her smile a blade. "You'll hate my counteroffers." The mural's owl now clutching a scroll in its talons, the ink still wet, the future a question mark smudged in fresh paint. Reopening day buzzed with national media, teen Javier streaming to 500K viewers as Rosa cut the ribbon with Adrian's gold scissors. Investors groaning at the rebrand Cedar Collective while Elena's kids unveiled the mural edition, Adrian's painted face stiff beside Rosa's easy grin, hands joint wielding a hammer labeled Shared Futures, the factory floor vibrating with the hum of retrofitted machinery and half-sung union hymns, the scent of fresh paint and tamales from the catering truck masking the lingering ghost of asbestos, Adrian's speech faltering as he locked eyes with Joe in the front row, the carpenter's oxygen tank draped in protest signs from '08. "I survived your layoffs," the billionaire's teleprompter glitching to display a decade-old email chain liquidates Cedar Brook, no strategic value. Rose's elbow jabbing his ribs, "Stick to the script, hero." The crowd's cheers curdling as rain smeared the mural's fresh acrylics, pigment dripping like blood from the hammer's head, Javier's drone capturing Elena's son wiping red paint from Adrian's cheek, the boy whispering, "You look less evil now," backstage. Priya frantically repainting the owl's talons around a crumbling stock graph, her brush trembling to the rhythm of the boards. Emergency calls lighting up Adrian's silenced phone, Rosa's sister slipping her a Xanax. "Breathe, they'll blame the rain if it melts." But the mural's gaze held firm, its layers of overpainted lies and truths fossilized into something that could outlast them all. The town never learned why he stayed, speculating through winter tax breaks. PR stunt Mrs. Pena swore Rosa blackmailed him with compromat, but at the victory dance, Adrian's whisper melted Rosa's steel. "You were my first real upgrade." Her laugh tangled with the band's off-key salsa. "Funny, I was aiming for a full-system crash." The gymnasium's disco balls spinning fractured light over generations of grudges and grace. Javier's live stream panning across Tomas slow dancing with his wife's urn, Luisa teaching investors' wives to shimmy, Joe wheezing through a vape pen smuggled past nurses, Adrian's hand hovering at Rose's back as if she might dissolve, his cufflink snagging her sweater's frayed hem. "I sold my shares," he confessed to her temple, the board suing for breach, her grip tightening. Should have read the fine print. We're all co-defendants now. The music dying as snow smothered the parking lot. The mural's owl now visible through frosted windows, wings iced into stained glass. Splendor, Rose's heel crushing Adrian's toe as she pulled him closer. "You know they'll get you for this." His breath fogging the space between them. Already did. The DJ cued at last as Priya slipped out with a paint can, her silhouette altering the owl's beak into something resembling a smile. The crowd's murmurs rising with the storms crying no, Snow wait. Is that Javier's battery dying midstream, the final frame? Rose's hand eclipsing Adrian's face, her thumb swiping a moisture he'd deny. The caption freezing boss fight endgame. Spring brought federal inspectors and Rose's promotion, Adrian appearing monthly with increasingly absurd flannels. Marisol caught them arguing over blueprints. He wants AI sensors, she wants bigger lunch tables. Priya painted their debates into the mural, shadowed hands clasping over a heart-shaped circuit board. The factory's new daycare overrun with engineers' toddlers and workers' grandkids building block towers on OSHA manuals. Adrian's helicopter rotates, wilting dandelions into the community garden. Joe hosting Take Your Billionaire to Work Day with a scavenger hunt. Find the fire exits cross removed in 09. Rose's office now papered with children's drawings of Mr. Fix-It. Her inbox flooded with townsfolk asking Adrian to fund scholarships, fix potholes, mediate divorces. You're the patron saint of bad decisions, she'd mock, tossing him keys to her pickup. Mrs. Pena's toilet's overflowing again, the mural growing a new wing where Priya etched every worker's fingerprint into circuit veins, Adrian's smudge hovering near Rose's like a moth to bare bulb, their late-night blueprint sessions marked by coffee rings and erased margins, the factory's heartbeat syncopating into something unpredictable, volatile, alive, the investors' lawsuits languishing in procedural purgatory, the world waiting would the owl take flight or devour its own wings. By summer, Joe's cough returned, Adrian helicoptering in specialists who worked pro bono. Don't flatter yourself, Rosa warned, we're still kicking your ass at the labor board. But her fingers lingered on his wrist checking his pulse, his too, the clinic's parking lot overrun with paparazzi and protesters. Joe's hospital bed wheeled into the factory break room per his request. I'll croak hearing the presses, he rasped. The machine silenced under pastel quilts sewn by the church circle, Adrian's medevac team tripping over extension cords meant for the annual chili cook-off, Rosa snapping, you turned his deathbed into a TED Talk, her rage fracturing when Joe gripped their hands, you two fight like my ex-wives, but the kid gloves gotta come off, his laugh a wheeze, this place'll eat you whole if you don't let it, the specialists whispering in German about unprecedented fibrosis. Adrian's card declining at the pharmacy until Rosa slammed her union credit, interest 20%, asshole. The murals all shedding golden feathers onto Joe's four-pole, Priya repainting its talons into gentle claws overnight, the town holding vigil with casseroles and war stories, Marisol's son asking, is the rich man an angel now? Rosa's answer lost in the hiss of oxygen, Adrian's midnight confession to the mural. I don't know how to save him, the paint cracking as if to reply, who said you should? Dawn finding them slumped on opposite ends of Joe's cot, Rosa's head on Adrian's shoulder, his tie knotted around her fist, the heart monitors flatlined swallowed by the stamping press restarting, Joe's last order, make something useful. Autumn elections made Rosa mayor, Adrian's donation refused until he offered matching funds for every local dollar. They bickered at the dedication of Joe's memorial bench. You're still a capitalist, she jabbed, he grinned, and you're my tax write-off. Javier's live stream zooming in on their pinky swears behind clasped backs, the town square choked with Joe's handmade birdhouses and PR drones. Rosa's inauguration speech interrupted by Mrs. Pena's chihuahua humping the podium, Adrian's suppressed snort echoing through tinny speakers. This is your fault, Rosa hissed, you fed him chorizo, the after-party devolving into a potluck where Adrian's soufflé flopped harder than his first merger. Tastes like tax evasion, Tomas cackled, feeding scraps to Joe's ghost dog, the bench's plaque misspelled perseverance by a hungover engraver, Rosa's thumb rubbing the error, perfect. The moon rising over Adrian's revised blueprint solar panels shaped like Joe's birds, Rosa's red pens slashing margins. Workers need showers before your fucking turbines, their compromise scrawled on a Denny's napkin, Javier's meme of their sleeping heads on the council table going viral. When the anarchist marries the oligarch, the murals update that night showing two owls dueling over a nest of wrenches and circuit boards. Priya's brush still wet when Dawn caught her weeping into the coffee can. The final mural update came on New Year's Eve, workers cheering as Priya added a tiny love note. Rosa's boot stepping on Adrian's wingtip, accidentally on purpose amidst golden gears. That night, Adrian missed his Dubai keynote. Flight issues, he lied, dancing with Rosa under factory lights she'd rewired to flicker like fireflies. The crowd's countdown muffled by a snowstorm. Javier's drone batteries dying as he filmed there. Slow spin, are they? The chat exploding, zoom mine, I ship it, sell out. Rosa's laugh warm against Adrian's jaw, they think we're dating. His hands slipping to her lower back. Imagine the HR paperwork, her retort stolen by the clock tower's groan, the mural's newest owl now crowned with mistletoe, Priya's signature hidden in its beak, the music fading as Rosa pressed the old foreclosure notice into his palm. Why'd you really stay? He smiled, same reason you blocked my car, but Javier's drone dipped too close, drowning his reply in rotor buzz, the crowd surging forward as their hands parted, the mural's eyes glinting under emergency exit signs, the untold confession hanging like a paint can mid-swing, the world watching the revolutions end when the enemy becomes the dance partner. Or is that when the real fight begins? When the music faded, Rosa pressed the old foreclosure notice into his palm. Why'd you really stay? The paper brittle as the lies he told shareholders, Adrian's smile cracking at the edges like the factory's foundation. Same reason you blocked my car. His confession severed by Javier's drone diving too close, rotors whining like the board's lawyers circling, the crowd surging forward with champagne and confetti made from shredded union contracts, their hands torn apart by Elena's twins demanding piggyback rides, Rosa's fingers lingering on the foreclosure notice's creases. Each fold a relic of battles fought before Adrian knew the weight of a hammer or the sound of a child's cough through thin apartment walls, the murals all now shedding gilded feathers onto the dance floor. Priya's brushstrokes still damp where she'd painted Adrian's tie loosened, Rosa's bun unraveling, their shadows merging into a single question mark under the disco ball's fractured light. Javier's dead drone capturing their last unguarded glance, a flash of something too raw from a mess before the crowd swallowed them whole. Mrs. Payne shouting over the chaos, he's got a wife in Monaco. Tomas countering, no, a yacht boyfriend. The truth buried under the band's mangled rendition of We Are the Champions, Adrian's cufflink lost in the scrum, later found by Marisol's son who declared it dragon treasure, the foreclosure notice slipping from Rosa's pocket as she hauled a drunk investor off the stage, Adrian rescuing it from under a boot heel, the words liquidate, and immediately smudged by his thumbprint. The mural's eyes following him to the roof where he folded the notice into a paper plane, watching it spiral into the river where the town's history of layoffs and love letters dissolved into silt. Now the mural watches, generations preserved in pigment and sweat, Adrian's quarterly visits marked by fresh paint splatters on his shoes, Rosa's union emails signed with a winking emoji. And Cedar Brook still whispers when the cameras die and spreadsheets sleep, what grows in the space between a closed door and an opened heart. The foreclosure plain waterlogged but legible in the riverbank muck, Javier's follow-up documentary racking Oscar's buzz, Priya's brushes gone silent since she painted the final owl's tear, the town's children reenacting the standoff in the schoolyard, I'm Rosa, no, me, their laughter echoing off the factory's solar-paneled roof. The unanswered question clinging to Adrian's quarterly reports like sawdust and silk, Rosa's late-night coffee cooling as she replays the drone footage frame by frame, the moment before the rotor buzz, his lips shaping words even AI can't enhance, the mural's newest edition a blank panel waiting for the next chapter, the owl's wings now threaded with gold leaf from Adrian's shredded contracts, the factory's heartbeat a stuttering rhythm of profit and protest, the world holding its breath when the last bolt is tightened and the final brushstroke dries. Will love letters written in ledgers and strike funds ever balance, or is redemption a debt even billionaires can't outrun? What would you sacrifice to find out?